intermediate level cybersecurity certification. We'll go over the objectives briefly, and then we're also going to talk about the partner and instructor resources that will be available to you, and Thomasine will be covering that, as well as the Q&A section where I'll be jumping in to answer any of your questions. What is CompTIA PenTest Plus? CompTIA PenTest Plus is a certification for intermediate skills level cybersecurity professionals who are tasked with hands-on penetration testing to identify, exploit, report, and manage vulnerabilities on the network. Some of these key job roles you'll see out in the field are penetration tester, vulnerability tester, and then those are the two main ones. But what this does is it's really talking about assessing the most up-to-date penetration testing and vulnerability assessment and management skills. So if there are two things to walk away here, what is PenTest Plus? Well, it covers penetration testing and vulnerability assessment and management. Both of those are job roles that exist. And this is going to prepare people very well for those job roles. Of note, and that is that the security analyst job role, if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it includes a penetration tester under information security analyst. And so you can see this is going to be related to CISA Plus, CYSA Plus, previously CSA Plus. Some of the main areas that we're focusing on are going to be planning and scoping. If you look at the domains in the lower left-hand corner, we're also going to be talking about information gathering, vulnerability identification, as well as attacks and exploits. And we're going to be going over a lot of penetration testing tools that are available. Plus, we're going to wrap the exam up and the domains up with the reporting and communication. Mind you, the exam is random. I'm just talking about the exam domains as they appear in the exam objectives document. Reporting and communication is the end domain because we're finding teamwork is becoming more and more integral to cybersecurity, especially as it becomes more regulated. And we have teams working together with project managers in many cases. And so if you noticed at the very opening slide, there was a fellow with a white hat on. If you're familiar with white hat hackers, those are essentially ethical hackers. They're hackers who are doing penetration testing in an environment where they have approval to do it, and they've often been hired to do it, whether it be they're a consultant or they're actually working at a firm in an enterprise corporation. The pen testing job, it can be done from anywhere. Next, why is it different? There are a lot of other great exams out there. A lot of you have probably heard of, I know you've heard of, Certified Ethical Hacker. There's also the Offensive Security Certified Professional. Those are the two big ones that we hear about, and those are both great exams. So I'm going to show you how PenTest Plus is related. And so how is ours different? Well, PenTest Plus is the only exam taken at a Pearson VUE testing center that focuses on penetration testing skills. It has both hands-on performance-based questions and multiple choice questions. And what that does, it ensures the candidate possesses the skills, knowledge, and ability to perform tasks on systems. And so if you go take PenTest Plus at Pearson VUE Testing Center, I'm going to talk about the beta exam that will be available at the end of this month in a moment, but you're going to find the traditional multiple choice questions that test knowledge, but you're also going to find our performance-based questions, which are simulations that put you in a Kali Linux system and in which you then have to perform actual tasks. So next is the CompTIA PenTest Plus exam not only covers the hands-on penetration testing and vulnerability assessment skills, but it includes management skills used to plan, scope, and manage weaknesses, not just exploit them. And this is very important in our conversations with corporate and a lot of military organizations as well. And it's something I mentioned to you earlier, and it's just management skills. And it's the idea of just being very responsible with hacking when we are using it in the form of penetration testing. What we have is the entire first domain is talking about planning and scoping and managing weaknesses. And so it's the ability for someone to work with a third party or another department, if the case may be, to actually set up a penetration testing environment, because you have to have permissions. There are legal issues involved. Are you going to be in the cloud where you're doing this? Or are you going to be on a local area network doing this? There are a lot of different scenarios, but you have to have permission before you do it. You have to know the blacklisted systems, the whitelisted systems. What are you allowed to hack? What are you not allowed to hack? These are very important things to learn, and it's also a matter of teamwork. Lastly, PenTest Plus is unique because it requires a candidate to demonstrate hands-on ability and knowledge in new environments, such as the cloud and mobile devices, in addition to traditional desktops and servers. And that's one of the things when we were working with our subject matter experts in the job task analysis, and was also verified in the survey, and that's that we moved away from the traditional desktops and servers and hacking, and now people are hacking Android devices, iOS devices, as well as the Internet of Things devices, because most Internet of Things devices that are deployed at the moment don't have a secure operating system. There's no secure Linux OS to work on to work right now on a Internet of Things device, for example. And so we're finding there's some serious gaps out there, and that's why there's some serious vulnerabilities out there. And so this is going to teach how to pen test in today's environment. Here are some of the participants. We had a lot of enterprise companies. We also had government. We also had academia. We also had international input. Some of the highlights, I thought, one was the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. They're responsible for securing the F-18 Hornet. One of the fellows working on that project helped us, but we're obviously not doing anything as complicated as an F-18 in this, securing an F-18, but we are looking at, trying to penetrate, devices that are non-traditional. And Johns Hopkins really helped us with that to bring this to the new level where it needs to be. Also, the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. Las Vegas Sands they're in Las Vegas, they're a huge casino, and they get hacked just as much as the government, which I guess I'm not surprised. When I was at AFCEA, I was at an AFCEA CERT conference in Augusta, Georgia last week, and all the cybersecurity heads were there from the various branches. And the .gov domain gets 250,000 attacks every hour. It's 250,000 attacks per hour, and they average 6 million attacks per day on the .gov domain. So that was pretty impressive, and that number is only going to increase. And so, the Las Vegas Sands is under attack all the time as well. Johns Hopkins trying to support our systems for the United States as a defense. And so it was really great. We also had TransUnion, which is a bank, and SecureWorks, that's from Dell. They provided a lot of insight. They work around the Austin area. And so we got a lot of really great input from a lot of really great and smart people. And so we believe the exam is most definitely going to show that. Plus, after these fellows went in and told us what they do every day, we went out and got a survey. And so we sent it out to pen testers throughout the world to have all of their results verified by other pen testers who said, yes, this indeed is what we do. Here's some of the information about the beta exam. The exam itself isn't going to be released until July 31st. But in order to make sure the exam is valid, we need to do a beta exam for it because it's new. So on January 31st, we're going to have the beta. And the beta will be available at Pearson VUE testing centers. The exam code is going to be PT1001. it's going to have, as we said, the performance-based and the multiple choice questions. There'll be 110 questions max. The length of the test, it's going to be 165 minutes. So if you go to take this beta, be patient, it's a long one. As far as the results go, you'll only get a pass-fail if you have anyone on your team that's going to be taking this. And you'll be notified around the time the final exam is released in July. So probably if anyone takes the beta, they'll find out, I'm guessing, the June, July time period, if they passed or not. But they won't get any kind of a score. Only the final exam will have an actual score. The beta will be in English only. Recommended experience. We ask that someone has Network Plus and Security Plus knowledge before taking it. Target audience here would be a minimum somebody with 2 to 3 years of hands-on information security or related experience. So people that have been working at the intermediate level of pen testing is our target audience for the beta. And will it be part of the CE program? Yes. It's going to be just like CSA Plus or CISA Plus, as we call it now, CYSA Plus, at 60 CEUs required for renewal. We're also going to pursue ISO ANSI 17024 approval, as well as the DoD 8140, 8570 approval. One of our certifications was just approved for 8570, and that was CISA Plus. So we are going to work and hopefully get this through and approved as well. That is our goal. Here's some of the proposed hardware and software for the labs. I'm not going to spend much time on this because you'll find this at the end of the exam objectives, which are available to you. In fact, Thomasina will be sending you a link after this that has some of the exam objectives and some other tools that would be helpful for you, including links to the web page. In fact, I think the PenTest Plus website just went up. So if you'd like to visit it, please, there's no link to it, so you just have to actually enter in the URL right now. But it is certifications.comptia.org/certifications/PenTest. And so if you go there right now, you'll see it. And I was very excited to see that go up this morning. And we put that up just so there's some kind of information for the beta exam for people who want to take it. So we'll keep the site up, though, until the exam is live. So that's the permanent place. I also have an example of some tools. Here's an example from Metasploit. The reason I put this on here is because you need to see how easy it is to do pen testing nowadays at the basic level for your own education, because this is one of the reasons why the internet's become dangerous, because script kiddies can now use any tools that the most advanced security professionals use. Script kiddie, the word script is, programming. In other words, you don't have to learn any programming because it's all done for you with a graphical user interface like you see right now. You just point and click. You don't have to know any coding, hence script. Then kiddies means a kid, just a young person who doesn't have much experience. So a script kiddie could use the basic functions of Metasploit, for example, because it's a graphical user interface. Anyone can download it. And then, as you can see, the available actions that I've included there, there's an actual menu of things that you can do, that you can launch if you so choose. And so that's rather alarming, I've always thought, because you look at that and see you can set up a live network. I'm sorry, I've just had a user error on my case. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. But there's available actions, and some of them are things like collect system data, as you can see. And if you zoom into that, there's a lot of other things. You can create a VPN portal. You can create a proxy server, all types of things that are used for hacking. But you can just point and click. Say, oh, yes, that's what I'd like to do. Here's another example that I'd like to show you. This is a bit more complicated just because it's not a graphical user interface. It's command line. But even the command line tools are getting a lot easier. So look at this. This is SET, very popular, social engineering toolkit. On this, even though it could run on Linux, you can see it's just, what can we say? I want to say it's hack by numbers. This is hacking by numbers. Look, select from the menu. 1, social engineering attacks. Oh, which one do I want to choose? 2, penetration testing. Which one do we want to do there, which is nice. But also when you go into social engineering attacks, you're going to find a whole lot of different ones, including ransomware attacks, as well as DDoS attacks on specific folks once you get the information from them. Like if it's a web address of the site you want to attack, for example, that you've gotten, you can then launch a DDoS attack on that particular web address that you want to attack. So there's a number of different ways that the social engineering attacks can be carried out. But it's a little scary how easy it has gotten. So the goal of this course is to teach these tools and take people into the intermediate aspects of them, which are something a script kiddie cannot do. Here's some of the indicators we've got. As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they classify this under information security analysts. And so you'll see here what it states. Conduct penetration testing, which is when analysts simulate attacks to look for vulnerabilities in the system before they can be exploited. The other thing is cyberseek.org, which we've helped create with NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology. If you go to CyberSeek, it actually is based on job roles and job openings in the U.S. by location. So if you go there, you'll see vulnerability and vulnerability tester is one of the categories. I would like to state something, though, as far as comparison purposes go, because there's actually a lot more jobs under security analyst than there are for penetration tester. Penetration tester is really considered a subset of information security analyst. And so for every 3 information security analyst jobs you have, you'll have 1 penetration testing job. Now, here's the thing, is that when people go into training, they usually learn both the security analyst skills, which are defensive in most cases, with pen tester skills, which are offensive in most cases. And so you can see the 2 are related, as you would need to have, offense attacking a defense and then the defense changing as needed. So the offense then is always changing. And so if the defense changes, offense changes. If offense changes, defense has to change. And so we can relate that to, PenTest Plus being the offense and security analyst, or CISA Plus from CompTIA would be the defense. I'll try to explain that a little better in just a moment when we get to the cybersecurity career pathway. Also, you might see there's not a lot of penetration and testing jobs. If that alarms you, the fact is if you look at the need for these skills and the fact that this is part of a larger cybersecurity career, then this makes a lot of sense, especially as you see, how penetration testing is integral in the cybersecurity market. The skills are a must-have. So now I've just taught you some of the basics of what PenTest Plus is. I'm going to go into a little more detail in a moment with the objectives. But what I wanted to ask is, based on what you've learned right now, you've seen some of the certs similar to, when do you plan to offer the CompTIA PenTest Plus exam? And the final is scheduled to launch July 31st. So based on the July 31st release date, would it be Q3, which would be, July, August, September? Would it be Q4, October, November, December? Q1 of 2019, and that would be, January, February, and March, and then Q2 of 2019, which take us into spring. Or if you're not sure, just let us know that too. And then when you're selected, please hit the submit button. I'm just curious. There we go. A lot of people not sure. We've also got A lot of people targeting Q3. So this is good. It's like the majority of you plan on offering PenTest Plus. And that's great. You'll see there's good news for you as far as our publishers go as well. They're all on board, all of the major publishers. Now, I'm going to show you how it fits in the cybersecurity career pathway. For me, when I'm explaining this certification, this is a really good way for me to explain it because people always understand it. Here's the cybersecurity career pathway with PenTest Plus. We probably won't update our career pathway until the final of PenTest Plus is released. Might do it a little in advance too, but eventually it will look like this. So it's the existing cybersecurity career pathway. We've just added PenTest Plus at the intermediate cybersecurity level with CISA Plus, which was previously CSA Plus. And so if someone wanted to go into cybersecurity using our pathway, they would start with IT fundamentals just to see if IT is interesting to them or not. Because when somebody's finished IT fundamentals, they'll know if they want to do this as a career or not. If they want to go into IT, they can start at A+, to represent someone with around 6 months of help desk as well as hardware, software experience. So if you were working at a help desk, say for 6 months, and we were to take a snapshot of what you can do at that moment, the skills that you have, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, those will be represented in the skills you learn in A+. Network Plus focuses on the 18-month time frame, and so Network Plus, if you've been in IT for approximately 18 months, and we took a snapshot of what you're doing, and you were going in infrastructure, in the infrastructure pathway, i.e., you're looking at infrastructure versus programming is what I mean. So if you're going down the infrastructure pathway, Network Plus is perfect because it's going to teach you how the internet works, how the network, that all those devices you've learned about in A+, how they communicate with one another. And then comes Security Plus, which mirrors the knowledge, skills, and abilities of somebody who's been working for about 2 years in cybersecurity. And so those are really the building blocks of cybersecurity: A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus. Also, with Security Plus, remember this: you have to have networking skills because you can't secure a network unless you know how it works. The key point is the TCP/IP protocol as well, because what the hackers are doing, they are manipulating, in many cases, the headers you find in the different protocols that are sent across the network. And so Network Plus teaches all of those, the OSI, the Open System Interconnect reference model. So you learn about the application layer, the presentation layer, the data link layer, network layer, transport layer. You understand how it works. So that way you can dissect, you can apply critical thinking, and you can choose the proper method of whether it be, making your system resilient to such attacks. So after Security Plus, students could take either PenTest Plus or CISA Plus, because both PenTest Plus and CISA Plus, are intended to be at the intermediate level. Whereas Cybersecurity Plus, it's really the building block of cybersecurity. And so with PenTest Plus and CISA Plus, we've now gone into an area with CompTIA that we're at the 3 to 4 year level. That is our target. So it would represent then both PenTest Plus and CISA Plus, the skills you might have after working in cybersecurity for 3 to 4 years. You would usually not be leading a project. You would be part of a team at this level. The difference between PenTest Plus and CISA Plus is what I mentioned before. PenTest Plus is offensive security, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing. Those are all different words for, a similar process. And so that is offense. It's about ultimately, attacking in order to find weaknesses. Whereas CISA Plus, which is the CompTIA Cybersecurity Analyst program or certification, that focuses on defensive skills. So it focuses on intrusion detection, trying to find the attack. So as you can see, the PenTest Plus and CISA Plus are like yin and yang. They are opposite, but they are interrelated. As offense changes, such as in PenTest Plus, as they figure out new types of attacks, I mean, we're learning about, AI, artificial intelligence being used even for pen tests, so for pen testing. And so there's a lot of new technology that's going to be most interesting to follow. But PenTest Plus is all about the offensive security in different ways that you can penetrate a system. And so wouldn't it be perfect if you are an institution and you have perhaps two classrooms, one's teaching PenTest Plus, one is teaching CISA Plus, you could actually have war games where you have some kind of a cyber range where you can put the offensive security folks against the defensive security folks, and they can actually learn in an environment that would simulate the real environments they would be working with. And so there's really not a better way to learn these skills than to do such types of activities. Right now, we don't have anything for you, but there are plenty of different net wars out there. There's lots of different blue team, red team challenges and such that occur all over the country. Well, now at your learning center, if you choose, you'll be able to have competitions if you'd like, if you have both of those going, and you'll have really engaged students. They're going to want to go into cyber warfare and practice these skills. And so what better way to learn pen testing than to actually do it against other live people? Similarly with CISA, what better way to defend a network than have people actually attacking you? So we would hope that our partners would embrace that training. It will be a learning curve for you, but it might provide some really great opportunities for learning for your students. Then we go to CASP, which would be cybersecurity cert from CompTIA, and that measures the knowledge, skills, and abilities of someone with 5 to 10 years of who's been in cybersecurity for 5 to 10 years. So if you take CASP, you'd be learning the knowledge, skills, and abilities of someone who's been working 5 to 10 years in an enterprise level environment, focusing on practitioner skills. So our CASP exam is not about management. It is not CISSP. It's an alternate for those who want to really stay hands-on, who don't want to go into management, but still want to work with IT, still want to work on enterprise solutions as well. So, the manager, the company management might come in and tell you, hey, we need you to implement this credit card payment system, for this new product we have in this new site. And so you'd be responsible then for going, okay, how are we going to do that? They'll tell you, you've got to be PCI regulated. So you say, okay, great. But you're the one that provides the solution for the enterprise. And so it's really neat, technical, and enjoyable if you are really into tech. All right, let's cover the PenTest Plus exam domains. I'm going to go over this quickly, but this is going to give you a really good idea of what to expect. As I mentioned before, domain 1 is planning and scoping, and this is talking about the legal concepts, making sure that you have done your proper planning for the engagement so that you don't run into any legal issues. And so this is also about teamwork, and that you have to work with other people in order to set this up, and you have to have a bit more knowledge than you might otherwise. And so that's very important. That's really the ethical part that is required in this, to make sure you have permission. Looks like these slides are darting ahead without my control, like a wild horse. I apologize. I'll just keep going back. The second domain is information gathering and vulnerability identification. And with this, we're talking about essentially using different tools to actually gather what types of systems you have on the network. It'll even show you, what types of service packs you've got on different systems, what operating systems they're running. You can determine that. If you find out you have a bunch of Windows XP systems on, you've got a whole host of attacks that you can launch. Next are attacks and exploits. So once you've found these vulnerabilities, how are you going to attack them? So here's where you're going to learn about the tools that I showed you, and there's a lot of tools. It's going to focus on things, far beyond just the traditional And that's one of the things I like about this. As you can see, we're talking wireless RF-based vulnerabilities as well. So application-based vulnerabilities and social engineering attacks. And so we really cover a lot of ground with our cert. It covers all of the modern systems that you would need to test. All right, and next is penetration testing tools. Talk about Nmap, talking about how you actually would go about it. One thing important to note is that you are going to be analyzing a basic script. So even though we're not going into scripting languages, we are going to be introducing people to Bash, Python, Ruby, and PowerShell. The reason is because if you ever become a red teamer, which is someone who would have to have 5 to 10 years of experience, if you're a quote unquote red teamer, you're working with offensive security, usually as part of cyber command in many cases. And wow, this does keep moving forward. My apologies. Okay, but what they do, they actually, when you're at that advanced level, beyond PenTest Plus, you actually script on the fly as you're doing your penetration testing, because you've maybe gotten a foothold, and now you're going to be just writing script on the fly to try to have lateral movement, to move around within the system, or launch new attacks. Most impressive, really neat stuff. And then the fifth one is reporting and communication, and this is all about teamwork as report writing. Doing post reports, how you would communicate with those that are above you in the company, your supervisors. And so this is the teamwork part of it. And this has been emphasized to us over and over again by the subject matter experts. Okay, next is the partner and instructor resources. So our first question is something I led to earlier, but it's about other certifications that you might be teaching. I mentioned CEH, OSCP. There's a lot of others. There's GPEN, many penetration testing certifications out there. We're wondering, are you currently teaching a pen testing or ethical hacking cert? And if so, could you list which one? We're very interested in seeing what our partners are teaching. I'll just give you a minute to enter in. All right. Thank you very much. With this one, I don't think we're going to get any responses, but we are very hopeful to hear that. We'll collect that information and find out. I'm expecting we'll probably find a lot of CEH, I would imagine. All right, now partner instructor resources. Good news, you will have a lot of content to choose from. We've had 100% buy-in from most of the publishers. So McGraw-Hill, Cengage, Logical Operations, GTS Learning, Cybex, Pearson Education, and 30Bird as of yesterday have confirmed they're creating learning content for this. They've all told us their release dates are between Q3 and Q4. So we'll see, usually the small publishers can get in sooner to the release date. So you might expect Logical Operations, 30Bird, possibly Skillsoft if they join in, GTS Learning, to have it closer to release date. And then you're going to have some of the bigger publishers, McGraw-Hill, Cengage, Pearson, Cybex, maybe Q4. I'm just saying that based on the development that we saw with the cybersecurity analyst certification. That was the release pattern we saw. So just FYI, and hopefully the larger publishers can get closer to July 31st. Also, when things are approved, publishing material is approved for PenTest Plus, you're going to be able to find it in our study materials page, which is located by the URL down there. It says http://certification.comptia.org training/studymaterials.aspx. So you can look there, and if something is located on that, that means it has been approved through the CAQC process, which is the CompTIA approved quality content program. Next is the Train the Trainer We have a great CompTIA instructor network. It's run by Tasneem Kasem and Steven Schneider. They do a fantastic job. I was part of the trainer they did for CSA Plus, which is now CISA Plus. And it was really fantastic. We got really good feedback from the instructors who took it. But what it goes over 2 months. They're planning on doing this in June and July, right before the exam is released. That's good because we'll probably have labs that can be used and content that can be used for that. They'll go over all the PenTest Plus exam objectives. They meet, I think, once or twice a week. I believe it's twice a week. They'll go over, all the key skills. They'll learn all the hands-on skills. They'll learn how to teach PenTest Plus best. And also they'll learn how to prepare for it so they too can take the PenTest cert. And so there's going to be recorded sessions available, and they'll be sending out links to everyone in the partner, with our partner network, which all of you are a part of, so that you get these links so that your instructors can go and check this. It'll all be on demand. They don't have to actually join these sessions. They can just watch the on-demand sessions that are recorded. But you'll be getting links for all of that through the CAP program. And next, we're going to go into partner marketing and sales tools. And for this, I'm going to hand it back over to Thomasina Hammond, who can run you through the different resources available to you. And then I'll be on later to answer some questions that come up that you might have had. So, Thomasina, please, it's all you.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So on the partner website, we have a number of resources that there's some things that are out there because this is such a new certification, but over the next few weeks and into months, you'll be able to find all of the PenTest resources that you need. So probably by, I would say, the end of the week, we should have a few more things out there, but you'll be able to download the exam objectives. We are currently working on the new certification guide that will be available. The logos are out there, and you can look forward to other marketing materials that will be found there. One of the best ways to go about that is just go to Download Central, where you can type in the certification on the right rail. There's places where you can filter for certain documents or specific certification materials. Next, I am going to ask the group to do a quick poll for me, just so we can look at how to best provide resources and CompTIA marketing tools for you. So if you could just list the top 3 events or publications where you get your IT industry information from. And also just a side note, the CompTIA Partner Summit is scheduled for July 9th through 11th this year in Washington, D.C. And we're currently working on the website and other materials that we'll be sending to you so you can get registered for that event. But again, it's July 9 through 11 in Washington, D.C. On Monday the 9th, we will be conducting instructor training again, and then have tracks running on the 10th and 11th. Move on to our next one. I have another quick poll, again, just so I can hear from our partners what marketing resources you find most helpful. Okay, then I'm going to turn it back over to Patrick, and thank you very much for your input. I look forward to seeing what everyone had to say.
Thank you, Thomasina. If you look at your screen now, you've got useful links. And here we've got the resource on the left and just the URL on the right. Most of you probably already have this information, but we wanted to list it for you just in case. As our social media sites for LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, as well as the content availability link. That's where you'd find our materials once they're CAQC'd. The classroom training availability, that would be for, once we have training partners that are going to be teaching PenTest Plus, so those will be listed there. As well as, exam vouchers, if you need to purchase those, some exam registration link. CompTIA does have a page on Pearson VU. In fact, if anyone is taking the beta, they won't be able to register for it until January 31st, because it won't be listed until that day. So you can't even register for the beta until January 31st. And then, of course, the partner website, where all those resources are located, that she just mentioned, partners.comptia.org, as well as the Download Central, which I've used a lot. But you do have to make sure you have a username and password to access some of the material. So if you do have questions, you can always just email Cap and the addresses at the end of this message or at the end of this slideshow. In fact, it might even be on the next slide. And there it is. Yep, cap@comptia.org if you have any questions. So thank you very much for joining today. We are going to have a question and answer session now that Thomasina is going to help run. So right now she's looking through any questions you had to determine which were the questions that were asked the most. And so hopefully we can answer them. We have about 15 minutes left. So as soon as we finish with the questions, we'll just wrap up the call. So thank you all for joining. And we hope that PenTest Plus is a really valuable certification for you. All right, Thomasina, what have we got in the ways of questions?
So, yeah, there's some great questions out here, Patrick. So we have a couple in reference to hands-on. There's a few here. So what percentage of questions are hands-on? And in relation to that, well, why don't you go ahead and answer that, and then I'll tie in the others.
Sure. Well, it varies drastically as far as how long it's going to take you to do the simulations, because all I have is just feedback I've got from IT pros that I work with who just told me what their experience was. So, for example, some of them said, well, I got, less than 8 questions that were simulation based, but those questions took me a really long time to do. So one of them said it took him a quarter to a third of the exam to do the simulations. And others have done it in less than that. Others have done it in more time than that. And then they spend the rest of the time on the multiple choice questions. So that is what I have heard in general, but your users are going to have a different experience, but should provide some help. Yes, Thomasina, what else?
Okay. And then is password cracking to be included in the hands-on portion of the exam?
Oh, we'd have to look at the objectives. We could do a search on the exam objectives and just see if that's one of the examples. But I believe, yes, that is. Whether or not it's going to be one of the simulations, I don't know. We'd have to go take the beta and find out. But that seems like a very logical kind of hacking lab to have, I think. Okay. And is social engineering or social engineering toolkits included in the exam? We're going to have to take the beta as well for that. I included the common tools that were mentioned during the job task analysis. So if you look at all of those different tools that are at the last page of the exam objectives for a pen test, there's a whole lot of tools there. And so, we don't know which ones are going to be included on the exam. They're all included there as examples for what you could expect to find on the exam. Okay, and will there be a study guide or a book for the pen test beta? There will not. There isn't any content created yet. In fact, a lot of publishers are going to be taking the beta as well, so they get an idea of what this may end up looking like as well, so they can actually create their materials. So we do not. If you need something to practice, I look at the objectives, because I think you could probably piece together some parts that are part of existing courses. So if you have any existing penetration testing search you're teaching to, I'd imagine that that content, a lot of it might be maybe usable for this. Okay, and here's another question. Does the course lean on learning Linux? There is going to be some Linux there, but it's mostly in just the apps. So as you can see, when we did SET, You're just opening up the app, usually working, within a menu. And I know this because I've used those. And so as far as, you're learning Linux, you should be familiar with it. But, in most cases, you don't have to be a Linux expert at all because you're just opening up the applications and then working within the applications. So, you certainly wouldn't want anyone scared of Linux. You want to give them a little, Linux primer, I think. But there's nothing to be intimidated by. Kali Linux, is what would be used in the exam development process. So you'd want to at least have a basic understanding and maybe some of the basic commands. We're talking very basic. We're talking like how to find the executable. We're talking about, the change directory command, just finding the directory where that app is so you can launch it. So if they have some of the basic navigational tools, in just working on a, command line in Linux, it should be good. And you could even use, one of the, graphical user interfaces possibly as well, so you don't scare your students too much. but in other words, I think that just a very basic understanding of Linux is going to be fine. That's something I wouldn't focus on too terribly much. But if I were to tell you, as far as going out in the real world, Linux skills are going to be extremely helpful for them in general. Next question.
All right. And then there's a couple questions in regards to, will there be interactive simulations or video content in the exam?
Okay. I suppose you'd call them interactive simulations. Yes. As I said before, from the people I've talked to, they'll say maybe there's like 8 or less simulations on the exam. Well, each one of those simulations would be where you might be seeing like the output for one of the tools you're using, or it might say, how would you go about, with this tool creating X, such and such attack. And so as far as that goes, I think that the simulations they're not live labs, mind you. They're still simulations, but they're going to be, simulating a real world example with real world tools on real world operating systems. But they're not live labs per se. In that, the way that it is designed is such that, essentially you're just going through pre-programmed steps, and if you make errors, then it's dinging you as you go about doing it, as opposed to if you make an error, taking you to an entirely different program and operating system, for example, that won't happen. Like if you open up the simulation, you try to launch, a service that you haven't been access to, it won't launch. Whereas if it was a live lab, you can do anything you want. So it's not live lab; they are indeed simulations, but it's better than multiple choice questions. And we've been told that time and time again, and we know that's one of the reasons why our partners and governments and corporations enjoy using our exams, just because they do get the idea, or they do get the knowledge, or how can I say this? They do learn whether someone can do the hands-on aspect of the job or not if they've passed our exam. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. All right, do we have any other questions?
I think we have, let's see. How does this certification compete with the CISSP?
Oh, CISSP. I just renewed my CISSP last month. And as far as the way that it would relate, I would say 2 things. One is that the CISSP is not performance-based. And so it is mainly just multiple choice questions. And there are some drag and drop activities, but there's no simulations per se that you're diving into an actual system and configuring it. There's nothing like that. Whereas our pen test exam will have environments where you have to go and configure them, or determine and make a decision based on the information that you find. The other area is that CISSP, it's an advanced cybersecurity management certification that you might find at more the 7-year or 5 to 10-year level. As I said before, it's more of an alternative to CASP, as opposed to PenTest Plus, because PenTest Plus is hands-on cybersecurity at the 3 to 4 year level. So you can see they're different in both. One is a hands-on exam versus one being a management exam. And then also at the sheer experience level, whereas CISSP is an advanced cybersecurity cert, whereas our PenTest Plus certification is an intermediate level cybersecurity certification. So those are the two main distinctions that I would make on that. I'd say they're not related, for the most part. Of course, pen testing is going to be something you're going to read about in CISSP and perhaps answer questions, but I don't recall anything when I was taking the exam that was specific to pen testing, actually. But maybe it was just the questions that I got. Okay. Any other questions, Thomasina?
And then I see here, is PenTest Plus a lower entry point than CEH? No, it should be around the same level. I think, I don't know off the top of my head where CEH was, but it is, I think it's almost went down to 2 years, if I recall. But in general, we consider CEH an intermediate level cybersecurity certification. And that is what PenTest Plus is as well. Okay. Will this certification be included in the 8570 directive?
We don't know. We are going to do our best, just as we did with CSA Plus and succeeded. We will try again with PenTest Plus. No guarantees, but we have every intention of applying for it, and we're hopeful that it will be approved. As far as that timeline goes, though, let me tell you that. So yes, with CSA Plus, when that was released in February, that's when we're able to submit it for the application. And then I think it got approved in October. So March, April, May, June, July, right? August, September, October. So it took 8 months to get it 8570 approved. And that was with, I do know the government's working on speeding up the process, but 8 months was wonderful because it took us 1.5 years for CASP. So perhaps with PenTest Plus will be 8 months or less until it is approved.
Okay.
If it is approved.
We have another one here. Yes. Do we have any anticipation of language localizations, and if so, which languages?
Yes, it's going to mirror whatever CSA Plus is doing. And so I'm going to the CYSA Plus site right now, and I'm going to look at the translations for that, because ExamDev told us they're going to mirror that. And right now it is only English, but I believe we have the, I believe we're going to be looking at possibly doing Japanese, simplified Chinese, and Portuguese. Those are the 3 languages that I've heard we may be doing for both CISA Plus and PenTest Plus. And as those, as we learn those dates, we'll be posting them on the exam table. And so I'm going to follow up on that right after this call, actually. That was a really good question. And so then I could put in the exam table, I could say when the final exam is finished, we're going to have it in, and then I could list the other languages. That's a great idea. Okay, thanks for bringing up translations right now. Thank you. All right, is there anything else?
You know what, I think just time for maybe 1 or 2 more. So here's another one. How much cross-pollination do you expect between CISA Plus and PenTest Plus?
Good question. They both have vulnerability assessment and management in them. And so I'm looking at, just my opinion is probably, there may be a 20% similarity between the 2 certs, and the baseline of those could be vulnerability assessment and management. That's just from what I've seen thus far, and another reason why the 2 go hand in hand. But there is going to be some crossover with those 2. I would guess just off the top of my head, 25%. They would share 25% the same content, but we'll learn more, of course, as we move forward, because this is all new for me as it is for you.
All right.
All right. How are we doing, Thomasina? Some great questions.
Yeah, there are some really good questions here. One more, and then any questions that we didn't get to, we will answer and get back to you. Here's an easy one. When is the new CASP certification coming?
Yes. Well, yes, and in the middle of all of this, we have begun revising CASP. And so those of you who are teaching the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner exam, we're going to have the new exam, CAS 003, released on April 2nd. So that's coming up. And we're gearing up for that right now, and we'll be having a partner webinar for that probably in about a month. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting. Also, so you know, with CASP, it didn't change a lot. The feedback that we got at the job task analysis was that it's still unique in its area, being an advanced level cybersecurity practitioner exam. The DoD still believes it is serving the function that it was intended to do, and so the objectives have changed very small. I would say it's less than a 20% change between CAS 002 and 003. That is from my understanding from what I have seen thus far. So as CASP 3.0 should not be upsetting to the system. I'd expect this to be a fairly smooth transition in general for both instructors and our partners.
Okay, great. Well, I think that just about wraps us up time-wise. So, Patrick, thank you for all of your expertise and delivering this great presentation to all of our partners. We thank everyone for taking the time to join today. Once again, we will be sending out a follow-up email that will have a link to the presentation. One more thing just to note, in that follow-up email, we have for our instructor group, there will be a deep dive, a 2-hour deep dive webinar on PenTest that will be coming up, and that information and link to register will be in the follow-up email. We encourage you to forward this webinar link to any of your colleagues that may be interested, and we look forward to hosting the next webinar. So thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.